Hello everyone, Howzit expats? A very warm welcome to the Australian community. This is our very first Howzit expats community webinar in Australia. So really excited to be here. Today is the 21st of October 2025. All our webinars are now pre-recorded, our community webinars, and you're most welcome. So I hope you do find value today. I'll quickly introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lamont Kritzinger. I'm the founder of Howzit Expats, and I'm a global financial coach. The purpose of these sessions is to provide factual information, not to provide advice as such. And these are pre-recorded sessions, as I've said. So just as a high level, then quickly by way of introduction, Howzit Expats? What are we all about? What are we trying to do? So here's a little quote from ourselves. I would like expats all over the world to not only survive in their new communities, I would like to see them thrive. So that's the purpose of Howzit Expats and all the communities that we operate in. So we'll quickly just start with a bit of information on the Shawshalawsa wheel, which you can see right there. So we've run this for a number of months now in Ireland and in the United Kingdom, and also on our Facebook site. So we have a competition every month for you to take part in. So in Australia this month, all you have to do is go to the Shawshalawsa wheel link, which is on our Facebook group, and you can spin the wheel as many times as you like. If you get 3 5s in one game in the next month, you have the option of one of our mystery prizes, and we have 3 mystery prizes for Australia to choose from this month. I'll quickly go through them. We have some sponsors here, and we're very grateful to them for supporting Howzit Expats and the Australian community. So we have a 1-hour online life coaching session by Colleen Quist, who you'll actually hear from a little bit later on. We also have a 12-month silver Howzit Australia advertising package on our website, howzitaustralia.com.au. If you've got a business or something, you might be able to make use of that. And then we have a copy of the Overseas Caregivers Guide. You're going to hear about that today, actually, from Janet Edwards in our 60-second slot. All right, so if you do get 555 in Australia the next month, and I think the cutoff date is the 23rd of November. Yes, so from today, the 21st of October until the 23rd of November, the 555 is operational. So first prize is one of those mystery prizes. And if you are the second person to get that in the month, you win a 12-month Howzit Expats membership. So you can spin to your heart's content. That's how you register. It's very simple. You just put your details in online and then you spin away. So I'll just show you a quick demo of how it all works so that you can see how easy it is. All right, so that was the Shawshalawsa wheel. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about Howzit Australia. This is our first webinar, so just a couple of slides on some useful information and our website that you can go and have a look at. So what is Howzit Australia? So our tagline there you can see is building stronger communities. Very much community focused for all the South Africans in Australia. So the vision is the go-to website for South Africans living and working in Australia. Thriving and well-being is the primary objective of Howzit Australia, the community. If you have a look at our website, howzitaustralia.com.au, you can see that's just a snippet of the homepage there. We always focus on our next webinar, when the community webinar will premiere on. Today is the 21st of October, so that will move to November, which is in fact the 25th of November next month. And then we've got a lot of information on businesses, events and webinars, and what's happening in the communities in Australia. So lots of information. We're busy building this out. We've just launched in Australia. So I do encourage you to participate, to add events, to add your communities, your Facebook groups, your WhatsApp groups, so that we have them all in one place for everybody else to see. We have free advertising packages, bronze packages. We have paid advertising packages from as little as €8 per month to be on our website, right up to being on the homepage. So if you do run a business and you'd like to have a platform to the South African expats, you're most welcome to contact us. That's the way we portray the communities. Here's an example of Perth. And we invite you to add all your communities. That'll be growing quite quickly in the coming weeks and months in Australia. This is what the events and webinars page looks like. We'll be expanding this. Again, I do encourage you to add all your events to there's no cost to that. You can add your events and communities. It's all free. And we just want to have one place, one portal where we can actually see everything. For these webinars, we have a very nice facility where you can actually ask the expert. So we announce our topics in advance. And once you see them, you can actually just go online, put in your details and ask the expert on that topic the question that you have, and we will answer it during the presentation if we have it before the time. So you don't have to go and ask somebody else. We actually have experts on a lot of topics in the coming months, and please make use of this facility. That's for you. We also have thought leadership packages. If you'd like to talk in these webinars, if you'd like to write in our newsletter or write articles or be on a podcast, you are most welcome to contact us. You can have a look at our Thought Leadership tab there on our website, and please participate. It's a platform for you to use should you want to. Also, membership is available for the Howzit Expats Australia community. I won't go through all the detail there. There are quite a lot of benefits, actually. Really, really valuable. Information, webinars, access to a financial coach, ask the expert. You can vote for your favorite topics, and a whole lot more. So have a look at that. Membership's now available. All right, so on to our agenda for today, which is this webinar. So this is how they work. We have a standardized agenda for our webinars. We have normally 2 financial well-being topics. We have 3 anchor topics, which I'll introduce in a second, and we normally premiere them on a certain day in a month, as we advise on our website, and then we distribute them to our members. The speakers are diverse. They are from different parts of the world. Mostly in Howzit Australia, we'll have speakers from South Africa and from Australia, although you will have speakers from other countries from time to time. And then we have what we call 60 seconds for partner news. And here we invite events organizers, business owners, etc., to come and tell the public, the members of the expat community, in 60 seconds what they're all about. So today's financial wellbeing topics are 2 really important topics. The first one is about tax residency, all you need to know about tax residency. And the second one is about transferring funds to and from South Africa. Our 3 anchor topics, our triple T top tax tips, we call it. That's a very short slot, just a couple of minutes every month. And then we have an important session called rerouting, which is our wellness focused session. This is presented by Colleen Quist. And then we have an Ubuntu slot every month as well. The Ubuntu slot is there so that we can be sensitized and be aware as to what is happening in Australia. What's the culture like? How do we integrate as South Africans with Australians? And you'll hear from interesting speakers every month, just for a couple of minutes. Again, these are very short sessions, about 5 minutes or so. All right, so this is the agenda for our very first webinar in Australia. Our topic number 1 is our first financial wellbeing topic. That's by SL Law, one of our stakeholders and partners. And the presenter today is going to be Jan Hendrik Opperman, all the way from South Africa. We'll welcome him in a second. Then we'll do the top tax tips. Now, we're still in the process of onboarding our tax expert for Australia. So I'm going to just do this myself today and just share a very high-level synopsis of some top tax tips and differences between South Africa and Ireland. And then I'll be actually presenting as well on the transferring of funds to and from South Africa. And then we have Colleen Quist in the rerouting session. And the Ubuntu session, we also are busy onboarding somebody to do that going forward. We've just launched, as I said. and I'll be presenting a very short slot on that. All right, so that's the agenda. It's a full agenda. It's very varied. You should hear from a lot of people every month. It should be really interesting. And you can come and go, of course, in these sessions. You can fast forward to the sessions that you are most interested in. That is quite a variety of topics that we have. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Jan Hendrik Opperman, who is in SR Law in South Africa, Leroux and Sampson Incorporated. They are a stakeholder and a partner of Howzit Expats. And a very important topic for all South African expats all over the world is tax residency. There are many webinars on this. Many companies offer webinars on this, and a lot of information to always absorb and take in, and things also do change from time to time. So a big welcome to Jan Hendrik Opperman, and I'll hand you over straight to him. Thank you, Jan Hendrik.
Hi, everyone. I am Jan Hendrik Opperman at SL Law here in Cape Town. Warm welcome out of a wonderful day here in Cape Town. I actually had a bit too much sun over the weekend, so hope everyone is doing well. Thank you for the opportunity. We are looking forward to joining the platform with Howzit Expats Global, Howzit Expats Ireland, the UK, Australia as well, and yeah, to be a part of this journey. As today's topic is tax residency for expats, I thought I'd just like to quickly take you through a few points of consideration regarding this topic. And quickly, this talk will touch on just why tax residency matters. Secondly, how South Africa determines tax residency, becoming a tax resident in the new country. Fourthly, the double taxation agreement between countries, the financial and practical implications around all this, and then just a few key takeaways regarding all of it. So quickly to touch on, understanding tax residency. I understand everyone here has already left South Africa. Primarily, I assume everyone has already. You're sitting overseas from our perspective, and you have left behind your life in South Africa, obviously, on a case-by-case basis, but majority of you are living abroad, even though you're from South Africa. Now, what we can talk about quickly is when we talk about tax residency, a lot of South Africans abroad confuse it with citizenship or the passport that they hold. But these are completely different things. So your citizenship is about your legal nationality. And this is about where your right is to live in, work in, and get a passport from a country. It doesn't determine where you pay tax. So your citizenship is about your right to live in, work in, or get a passport from a country. Your tax residency, on the other hand, is about where a country considers you to be based for tax purposes. It's not about what passport you hold, but rather where you live your life. So this includes where your income is earned, where your assets sit, and where your personal and economic ties are strongest. So why does this even matter? It obviously matters because tax residency determines which country gets to tax your income. So if you're still considered a tax resident in South Africa, God can tax your worldwide income, meaning everything you earn abroad from your salary in London or in Sydney or in Dublin to investment income and rental income anywhere offshore. So this often catches some expats off guard because many assume, of course, that once they left South Africa, started a new job overseas, and open a foreign bank account, they've automatically stopped being tax residents. But unfortunately, in South Africa's system, it doesn't happen automatically. You remain tax resident until you formally break it, which is a process in itself. So understanding where you're tax resident isn't just a compliance matter. It affects double taxation risks, your financial planning, and peace of mind, of course. So quickly, the first topic or the first point that I'd like to go into deeper is how South Africa or SARS determine tax residency. So South Africa doesn't use a single clear-cut rule to decide whether you're tax resident or not. Just to add to that, initially and always, firstly, we look at your passport. So if you even have obtained your new passport overseas, that will obviously still always reflect if you were born in South Africa, place of birth, South Africa. So in terms of the exchange control regulations of the Reserve Bank of South Africa, you are automatically resident there, except if you formally cease your tax residency, and I'll get to that later. And yeah, follow that process. So we can obviously look at this on a case by case basis, but those are the outlines. So again, SARS doesn't have a clear rule. That wasn't a rule that I described. It's just how we start when we look at things. So SARS applies two tests from their perspective on a rolling basis. It's the ordinary residence test and the physical presence test. So if you meet either of them, you're considered a tax resident. So for the ordinary residence test, this is the main one. It's not based on how many days you've spent in South Africa, but rather where your home truly is, not just physically, but emotionally and practically. So SARS looks at things like, where are your family and dependents? Where do they live? Where do you keep your main home or property? Where your personal belongings are? Where your business or employment interests lie? And most importantly, where do you intend to return after being away? Now, that's an important one. Because, for example, if you move to Dublin for work, but you still own your Johannesburg home, you keep a local bank account here in South Africa, and you visit every December, and you plan to come back one day, maybe in future, in a few years or so, SARS might still see South Africa as your ordinary residence. So it's a case by case basis again. We can, check with you. We can have an online meeting and determine and apply these tests if you're worried about this or if you have any questions about it. But yeah, you might still be considered ordinary resident in South Africa if you still have assets here, if you intend to return, and if you still do return regularly and keep your assets here. Then there's also the physical presence test. So this one is purely mathematical. If you've been physically present in South Africa for more than 91 days in the current tax year, more than 91 days in each of the previous 5 tax years. So this current tax year, more than 91 days, more than 91 days in each of the previous 5 tax years, and more than 915 days in total over those 5 years, you'll automatically become tax resident, even if you no longer consider South Africa your home. So just to keep in mind, if you're living in Ireland or the UK or in Australia, and you do spend a lot of time in South Africa, it is important to keep this rule in mind. If you have already ceased tax residency formally with SARS, please do keep in mind that, the physical presence test might bite you if you're not considering that. So also, the moment you spend 330 full days outside of South Africa continuously, the physical presence test falls away and you're no longer considered resident under that test. So on that test, the physical presence test, but of course the ordinary residence test, a lot of tongue twisters today, will still be used to determine your tax residency. So in breaking tax residency, though, it isn't just about meeting these tests. When you do decide to cease your tax residency, you have to formally record it in SARS. It's a formal process. And it typically, you do that by indicating in your return and during an audit of your departure year that you are no longer tax resident. And there are extra taxes and all sorts of things involved. It's a formal process. And we obviously do assist with that as well. I'll get to that a little bit later on. The key takeaway here is that residency isn't about your location on a map. It's about where your life is anchored. If your life is still anchored in South Africa, SARS may still claim taxing rights over you, even if you're sitting in a London office or in an Australian cafe. The second quick point I want to touch on is becoming a tax resident in your new country. So we've touched on how South Africa determines tax residency, and we can quickly just chat about becoming a tax resident in your new country, and I'll obviously touch on Ireland, the UK, and Australia. So once you leave South Africa, your new country of residence will start looking at you as a potential tax resident. Every country has its own rules, of course, and they often differ quite a bit. So it's important to know what counts where you move. So let's break it down by popular destination, the United Kingdom. The UK uses the statutory residence test. It's based on a combination of days spent in the UK and your connections there, such as having a home, family, or work ties. And for instance, you can spend up to 183 days in the UK before automatically becoming tax resident. But even after quite fewer days, it could trigger residency if you have significant ties. Now, again, we can look at that on a case-by-case basis. So get in touch if you have any questions. Secondly, Ireland. In Ireland, you become a tax resident if you spend 183 days in a year or 280 days over 2 consecutive years. So that's an automatic trigger, 183 days in 1 year or 280 days over 2 consecutive years next to each other or following each other, then you are automatically tax resident in Ireland. Ireland also looks at where your center of vital interest is. So if your main home or family is there, you could be considered resident sooner. For Australia takes a slightly broader approach. They consider you a tax resident if you dwell there permanently, if you're domiciled there, or if you spend 183 days or more in a year in Australia. Even temporary residents can be considered a tax resident for certain tax purposes. So the important part, of course, is that you can be a dual tax resident for a while. That means that South Africa and your new country could both see you as a resident at the same time. And this is where the double taxation agreements, or the DTAs, come in to help determine which country has the primary right to tax your income. We'll talk more about that shortly. So the practical takeaway is that you should not assume that moving overseas automatically makes you a tax resident there or stops you specifically being a tax resident in South Africa. Each country has its own rules, and you need to track both your physical presence and your personal ties carefully. So quickly, I touched on it now, the double taxation agreement. Obviously, you all as expats, you have your concerns. Am I going to pay tax twice, once in South Africa and once in my new country? And this is where the double taxation agreements step in. So South Africa have DTA with Ireland, with the UK, and with Australia, among many other countries. It's not just those three. Their main purpose is to, of course, allocate taxing rights and prevent the same income from being taxed twice. So it's quite important and quite it's a nice thing that's in place. So here's how it works in practice. Suppose you've moved to London and you are earning a salary there. The UK taxes that salary based on because you're now a tax resident there. If you're still considered a tax resident in South Africa, however, SARS could also want to tax the same income. But because we have a double taxation agreement with the UK, South Africa and the UK, either by exempting the foreign income from tax or giving a tax credit for the tax that you've already paid in the UK, South Africa provides relief. So you can prove that you pay tax on your salary in the UK and your tax resident there, then you can provide that proof to SARS, and SARS will credit you on your worldwide income using that credit. Well, they will give you that credit, and you won't have to pay it again to SARS as well. The DTA also helps in these situations where you might have dual residency, and they include tiebreaker rules, which looked at things like where your permanent home is, where your personal and economic interests lie, where you spend most of your time, and your nationality. So this means that even if you meet the tax residency rules in two countries, the DTA can determine which country has the primary right to tax your income, reducing the risk of paying the double tax. A key tip for expats is that you should keep records of your time abroad, your employment, and your ties in both countries. It makes it easier to claim relief and defend your tax position if SARS or the Foreign Tax Authority asks any questions. So I'll also quickly touch on the financial and practical implications for expats. So leaving South Africa isn't just a change of scenery, it can have real financial consequences. Here's what every expat should know. So firstly, the exit tax or deemed capital gain tax. When you formally seek South African tax residency, when you formally teach your South African tax residency, SARS treats your worldwide assets as if you sold them on the day that you leave. So it's a snapshot essentially of your position, your tax on any capital gains accrued up to that point. Certain assets are exempt, like the South African retirement funds, but it's crucial to get advice on this. Exit tax can be a big surprise if you're not prepared. Obviously, all of you guys have already left, but again, if you have any unresolved issues or ties to South Africa or to any other jurisdiction for that matter, it's very good to get in touch and we can have a discussion on these topics. Secondly, retirement funds and pensions. Your retirement annuities and pension funds in South Africa may continue to grow tax deferred. Contributions or withdrawals while abroad can trigger tax implications both locally and in your new country. And professional planning obviously helps you to navigate that. Just on that note quickly, even if you're leaving South Africa, you have sold all your assets, you're done, you're not coming back. You want to cease your tax residency completely in South Africa, and you want to become a tax non-resident in South Africa, completely no ties to SARS, and you have a retirement annuity. If we complete that whole process, we calculate the exit tax and all of that, and we get the confirmation from SARS finally, cease to be tax resident form, where they confirm that Mr. Jan-Hendrik Opperman, ID number, has ceased to be tax resident as at this date. Your retirement annuity in South Africa needs to stay in South Africa, will accrue its interest and grow, but you cannot access it. You cannot take it offshore for 3 years. That's just an example. So if you cease your tax residency today, you have to wait for 3 years before you can take those funds out of South Africa. Then also the property and investments. Owning property in South Africa while living abroad can complicate your tax situation, as many of you might already know, as rental income may be taxable in both countries and capital gains on future sales need careful timing. Offshore investment might also trigger reporting obligations in both South Africa and your new country. So again, it's good to get in touch and speak about that on a case-by-case basis for your personal matters. Banking and exchange control. South Africa still monitors foreign transfers and investments for residents. So updating your tax residency status with SARS and the South African Reserve Bank is important to avoid compliance issues. Also, I want to add bank accounts. So if you have formally tax migrated or then ceased tax residency in South Africa, you still had your resident account, which is a normal banking transactional account, a current account. That account, you need to notify your bank, and you have to, with the formal notice from SARS, and that bank has to either close the account or change it to a non-resident account. And transacting with a non-resident account in South Africa has its own headaches, and we can get into that another time, but just keep that in mind as well. It's important. You're not allowed, if you have ceased your tax residency in South Africa to retain your resident account. It must be changed or closed. Must be changed to a non-resident account or closed completely. Common mistakes that expats make include that a lot of you guys assume that leaving South Africa automatically makes you a non-resident for tax purposes. You forget to declare your income or assets abroad. You don't consider the timing of leaving for financial year purposes. For example, leaving halfway or partway through a tax year can trigger unexpected obligations, and ignoring the double taxation agreements and not claiming foreign tax credits. So your key takeaway for this is planning your exit carefully and keeping proper records, if not optional. It's the difference between smooth financial transition and years of headaches with SARS or foreign tax authorities. Lastly, this brings me to a close for today's session from my side. The main point to remember is that leaving South Africa is not just a physical move, it's a tax event. So key points for you guys as expats, tax residency is different from citizenship or your passport. So where you live your life determines where you are taxed. South Africa takes worldwide income South Africa taxes worldwide income if you're still a tax resident in South Africa. So it's crucial to know when and how you formally break tax residency, and we can get in touch and speak about that. Essentially, it's the tax migration and the whole formal cease to be tax resident procedure and forms. Every country has its own rules for becoming tax resident, and if you can be a dual resident until your taxation, or your residency situation is clarified. So that's also a big thing to remember. The double taxation agreements exist to prevent paying tax twice, but you need to claim the relief correctly and keep your proper records. And lastly, financial planning matters. There's an exit tax, retirement funds, annuities, property, and banking all require careful management to avoid frauds and pitfalls. So don't leave these matters to chance. We are part of this platform with you. We are very excited to join in it. Thank you for the opportunity. And get in touch if you have any questions. The whole team here at SA Law in Cape Town, it's Samson LaRue Incorporated, SL Law. We also have an advisory firm, Cycus, that can cater to all different needs and inquiries. So happy to get in touch with anyone who has any questions regarding the topics we've discussed and any other legal or tax residency issues. Thanks so much, and back over to the rest.
Okay, folks, our first 60-second slot for today's community webinar. I'm thrilled to tell you about the Overseas Caregivers Guide. This is born in Australia and all about caring for your parents back in South Africa with systems and checklists, etc. It's a really, really important topic on the theme of well-being, not only for ourselves, but for our broader family. So I'd like to introduce you all to Janet Edwards, who's going to tell us all about the Overseas Caregivers Guide in the next couple of seconds. So Janet, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much for having me. I basically started the Overseas Caregivers Guide for people who are living, South African expats across the world, just to help look after your parents. And when my dad passed in January this year, I thought other people need this information as well. So I've set up a basic book on medical checks, support setup, accounts, legal documentation, how to take care of your parents for medical appointments, and a lot of other details. There's a lot of emotional guilt with expats living abroad, and this is just a way of taking care of their people without being too complex. It's if you start small, as long as you start. The most important document that you need is the power of attorney. If anybody's got any questions, there's a Facebook group and you're welcome to post on there. It's called the Overseas Caregivers Guide.
Excellent, Janet. Thank you so much. And your website is theoverseascaregiver.com. And these copies are available for purchase. Yep.
Yes, they are.
Excellent.
I've actually got they're 27 Australian dollars, but there's a 44% discount with a code Flamingo.
Flamingo. Excellent. So everybody, Howzit expats, Flamingo is the code, and you can be the owner of the Overseas Caregivers Guide. Really an important topic. Janet, congratulations. Thank you for providing this information. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you so much for having me.
on our webinar, and we'll chat soon. Cheers, Janet. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
So on to our next topic, our next financial well-being topic, which I'll be presenting on, and that's around transferring funds to and from South Africa. This is a high-level overview, generic information, but important information, and hopefully valuable to you. The world has changed. So let's hear about this topic. So this is about moving money around. I'm going to share some important facts with you. I'm going to share a little bit about money out, moving money out of South Africa and moving money in. But I thought I'll start with a quick story. So I remember going overseas for the first time, very lucky to go overseas when I was young with my parents. And I remember my dad taking along what looked like a checkbook and traveler's checks. And I tried to figure out how this works. Quite a complicated process, really. But we've come a long way since traveler's checks and having to get cash before you go to a country to have their currency, before credit cards and debit cards, and those things were quite prevalent, to many different ways of actually moving money around. So the world's changed a lot, and all governments around the world are generally quite interested in what happens with funds in and out of their countries. Some are more relaxed than others. South Africa, in fact, is a country that's probably a little bit more controlled than others in terms of exchange controls. All right, so just a high-level, quick overview on money in and out of South Africa. So in terms of important facts, just a couple of points. So that is important, point number one there. It is important to do this all correctly, to follow the procedures. Compliance is really important in terms of transfer of money in and out of South Africa, doing it the right way, using the right paperwork, and getting your house in order. There is scrutiny from the South African Revenue Services, SARS, and in fact the Reserve Bank specifically as well. All right. So just the first point to make is just ensure that you follow the correct process in terms of getting money in and out of South Africa. As a general statement. Point number two, exchange control. In fact, South Africa is one of the few countries that has quite strict exchange control in terms of money leaving South Africa. And that falls under the South African Reserve Bank. They are already interested in what happens to the flows of funds. It has been relaxed the last couple of years. It used to be a lot stricter, actually, many years ago. So there has been more relaxation around this, but there are still controls in place, as you'll see in a second. And then there's this concept of authorized dealers. So authorized dealers are licensed banks, intermediaries that can process foreign exchange, forex transactions. Also important that you actually deal with the right kind of entities and people who are authorized dealers and able to do this from a South African perspective. Tax residency status does play a role in terms of different rules and different procedures that govern the flow of funds. So whether you are still a tax resident with SARS in South Africa, or whether you ceased tax residency formally through a process, then that can impact the rules and the restrictions in terms of the flow of funds. There are differences there. So important to take note of that. Transparency is a very important principle when it comes to the flow of funds. There isn't really a way around. You can't hide these transactions. They need to be transparent, and there are a lot of people that are interested in tracking them, etc. All right, so that's just the overall principle as well. And then some of the key role players, there are a lot of different entities that actually move money around for you and different ways you can do it these days. You don't have to use traveler's checks anymore, like we did many years ago. So commercial banks, so in South Africa, the larger banks are involved in this. You get banks that specialize a bit more in terms of forex and foreign exchange transfers. And then you get specialized forex providers, okay, quite a few of them around who focus just on these transactions.
And then there are a lot of online platforms that have mushroomed, I'd say, the last certainly 5 years or so. I think from a 5 to 10 years from a transfer money perspective. Offshore accounts as well. Now possible to have offshore accounts which you can use to transact in certain ways within certain guidelines and rules. All right, so those are just a couple of the facts that I wanted to highlight just to share what is important. So let's talk about money out. So the needs here are people such as expats who emigrate, sell their house, cash in their retirement annuity that they can now take after 3 years since when they left, and they want to get funds to Australia or the UK or wherever it might be. Supporting family overseas, so you might not have emigrated, you're in South Africa, you just want to send some money across, and also investing abroad. So you want to diversify your investments and actually put money offshore in a different currency, in euros or dollars or pounds or whatever it may be. How much can you send out of South Africa? So there's this concept called a single discretionary allowance, SDA. That's 1 million rand per adult in a calendar year. So this doesn't need any specific sign-offs or approvals from anybody. And you can use this, for example, when you're on holidays and when you're traveling, and that comes out of the 1 million rand per adult. All right. So for most people, that's plenty of scope to actually be able to move money overseas and actually satisfy some of those needs we mentioned in point number 1 there. If there's a bigger need, there's an allowance called Foreign Investment Allowance, FIA, which is another 10 million rand in a calendar year per adult. And there are specific processes in place for that, SARS clearance, tax compliance, all these things come into play if you want to send larger amounts overseas, okay, money going out. So very important to note that generally with the flow of money, the source of funds is a focus area and something that institutions want to know. So we all know about money laundering, taking clean money and taking dirty money and making it clean rather through a process of layering or washing. You get all these different kinds of concepts. So SARS is very focused on specific procedures required for taking larger amounts out of South Africa. Point number 5 there, their concepts called tax compliance status, TCS it's called, and there's a thing called TCS PIN. All these are procedures and requirements and controls that are in place to actually ensure that when people take money overseas, their tax affairs are in order and everything's above board. Lastly, just to mention in terms of taking money out, planning is really quite important, especially for larger amounts. Planning and timing and getting advice for larger transactions from the appropriate people is normally a good idea, so that you don't do the wrong thing and you do it in the right way. All right, so that's just very high level on transferring money out. Money in, it's a lot simpler in terms of getting money into South Africa. There are actually no limits or restrictions in terms of bringing money back into South Africa for anybody. But transparency, again, is always the principle. Okay, so people want to know where does the money come from. Money laundering is always that issue. Doesn't matter which direction the money goes to, if it goes in or out. Source of funds needs to be declared to SARS and the South African Reserve Bank so they can track the source of funds. And then timing in terms of money in and out, really. Exchange rate volatility. The rand can be quite volatile, so certainly for large amounts, bringing it in again, you want to try and see how's the rand doing versus the currency where the money is, how's it at the moment. Okay, so that was a whistle stop tour, really just very high level in terms of funds and transfer of funds and flowing in and out of South Africa. Really important for expats and want-to-be expats to take care of and to get to the right partner to help them in terms of your needs. All right, so that's the end of that session.
So folks, in these webinars, we have this session called Rerouting, and we have our presenter, Colleen Quist from Johannesburg in South Africa, who's been presenting around the world for us in our webinars in Ireland and in the UK, and now also bringing it to you in Australia. A lot of food for thought here. This is really an important topic, and it's just a short slot, 5-6 minutes, but I'll hand you right over to Colleen. There you can see a picture of Colleen. So Colleen's a life coach. Colleen, I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Howzit expats? I'm Colleen Quist. Thanks so much for joining me. I wanted to talk about my podcast rerouting and why I called it rerouting. Basically thinking that when we leave a country, we imagine that we need to dig up our roots and either throw them away or pick them before we are able to go to another country. And nothing could be further from the truth. It really is important that we understand that even contemplating or wanting to leave one country to go to another country does not mean that we need to dig up the roots and in the most times like throw them away or say, okay, no, we don't need these anymore. Let's get rid of them. And it's almost like loving more than one child, where you understand that because you've got a second child or a third child or even a fourth child, you don't suddenly love the first child less. And it's about how do we embrace, how do we embrace and? So South Africa and another country, South Africa and, as opposed to this idea of, no, we've got to give up South Africa. So it's also seen as well that, you can go to a rugby match and do and. You can support the Springboks and your team or new team. It's also about understanding that a lot of people feel that they need to give up everything that's South African. But it's okay to prefer your new country's curry or to prefer your old country's football team or to, so many people are then torn as to like, where do they belong? And I would really like to encourage you to embrace and, in that we can sing more than one anthem. We can eat more than one kind of national food. I mean, when you think about South Africa, there's lots of different kinds of national foods. What I've also seen is that people tend to, feel like that if they still like something that's African, they're being disloyal. So what also happens is that people either bury everything that's African and say, no, we've got to pretend it never existed. The country was never there. And so they either ignore South Africa or they speak badly about the country. On the other side, you've got the other extreme where everything in South Africa was 100% perfect, which we know it wasn't. And then they compare everything to their new country. So it may help you to actually see as well, or to embrace that they are different and that you can have both. You can really embrace and. And so with that, that's why I decided, let's call it rerouting. So instead of just digging up roots, we're going to leave the South African roots and we're going to go plant new roots. We're going to maybe plant new roots in more than one country. And it's okay. You can embrace and. So with that, please remember that you're loved, you matter, and you're not alone. And we'll see you next time. Oh, and by the way, if you think my voice is strange, it's because I have hosted workshops for 4 days in a row. And I think my voice has gone AWOL. But hopefully it'll be back soon. Okay, bye.
Thank you again, Colleen. That was fantastic. Really looking forward to next month's session. So on to our last session for today, which is our Ubuntu slot. So we have included this slot in all our webinars, our community webinars, because Ubuntu, the overseas equivalent of Ubuntu is integration into the culture of whatever's important where we are now staying. So whether it's Ireland or UK or Australia. And we're going to be hearing from South Africans who've been living in Australia for quite a number of years, as well as Australians themselves, in terms of what's important for integration and community purposes from an Australian vis-a-vis South African perspective. So we're still lining somebody up in this session as well. We just gone live in Australia, as I said. So I thought, I have been to Australia myself, and what did strike me was the lingo. So I thought I'll just bring a couple of slides to you today and just a little bit of food for thought. Quite a few differences in language, actually, although we are English speaking, between Australians and in South Africa. Here's a couple just in terms of everyday words. We do know the braai is not a braai in Australia, although there are so many South Africans in Australia. I'm sure a braai is becoming a braai, but it's more a barbie. And there you can see a couple of other bakkie. In fact, in Ireland, you don't even see a bakkie. I don't think in Ireland I've seen anybody sitting on the back of a bakkie. But in Australia, that's a UTE, short for utility vehicle. Robot traffic lights, very similar to America. They don't have robots there. They have traffic lights. Tackies or sneakers. We have a lapa. There's a gazebo or pergola in Australia. Howzit? Good day, or how are you going? The terminology in Australia. Boerewors, a snag. I haven't heard of that before. But I'm sure there's lots of boerewors, which is not called snag in Australia. Just now, yes, we often as South Africans get teased a little bit, I guess, around this word just now, which doesn't really mean just now. It can mean anything. What really is just now, but the Australians apparently say in a sec or see you soon. And then no shebeens really, but pubs or bush bars. So a couple of everyday words there. And then culture, food and lifestyle. Don't really have cook sisters in Australian culture, but they do have something called honey twist, I believe. Pop is polenta or porridge. Combi is a VW van or load shedding. I'm not sure. I don't think there's much load shedding in Australia, but that would be a blackout or power outage and not happen too often, I'm assuming, in Australia. And then I like this one. You're a chop, which sort of means you're a bit of a fool or idiot. We colloquially use that, but Muppet, I think, is the one that probably Australians use mostly. And then, of course, biltong is called jerky, although probably biltong by now in Australia. But we'll get the Australians on in future programs to tell us about this in more detail. And then the last one, slang and expressions. Ish, blimey, I think is more the word in Australia to be used. Ripper, I quite enjoy the word ripper. Remember the cricket commentators, that's a ripper, falls through the covers. We'd say that's lekker. Now also, of course, we just mentioned that. Is it? Yarnier, sharp. So you can have a look at a couple there on the screen. And Gatful, fed up, had enough, done with this, can't be stuffed. So anyway, interesting, the differences in language, whichever countries we are in, and the terminology we use for different things, and especially interesting, I think, because we're English-speaking countries in both English and other languages, of course, but English in South Africa and in Australia. All right, so that's a very whistle-stop first Ubuntu slot for Australia. So a couple of slides to end off then the webinar today. So just to say, I have mentioned this before, membership is now available in Australia. You're very welcome to join. It's €9.90 a month or €99 for the year. It entitles you to all those benefits I mentioned earlier. You can have a look on our website. And you may have seen some of this in social media just recently. The Ostriches have been a bit more curious. We're wanting to support more South African expats around the world. And on a serious topic, the well-being of South African expats is really important to us. And it's core to our existence, as I said right at the start of this webinar. So we've just come out with what we call a well-being barometer. That's our little slogan. And what the well-being barometer is, it's actually enabled through a survey that is live right now. It's called the Howzit Expats Let's Ask Africa survey. It's completely anonymous. You don't put your name in. It takes only about 10, 15, 20 minutes maximum. And it's really important to get feedback from South African expats, whether you are planning to move, whether you've already moved and been an expat for 1, 5, 20 years, doesn't matter, and those that have come back to South Africa. Please encourage you all to take part, provide your feedback. We need this information so we can see what's really going on. There's a lot of this information, but sitting in Facebook groups informally, and we want to make a bit more about it so that we can put actions in place. That's some of the posts you would have seen. In fact, it's just been World Mental Health Day, and we will reissue this survey on the 10th of October every year. And that's why we call it a well-being barometer. We're going to be measuring the change in drivers of success, drivers of challenge, motivations for leaving, motivations for coming back from year to year. So please do take part. There's the survey link at the bottom there. And we've also got a short 4-minute video introduction by myself and by Dr. Anna Marie Lombard from Sensory Intelligence and also from our Ask Africa colleagues. So yeah, please do take part. You're most welcome. So just to end off, we're very focused on financial education for kids. And we have what we call My Money Movies, which are short AI videos, which we play around with a little bit. And we will be playing one of these at the end. The purpose of them is really to get a discussion going in the home around financial education. So, you know, why insurance is your superhero, savings like a sports star, I'm saving, fun money lessons. These are going to be some of the topics we'll be coming out with in the coming months. And we'd encourage you just to share them with, if you've got young kids at home, and make them a discussion point where you can actually talk about the little short video they just watched, what it means, etc. And all part of financial education. That's sort of what some of them look like. And this one is on what is a budget. So we'll be playing out with one of those at the end. If you enjoyed today's webinar and the content, please do share it with your South African mates, wherever they may be over the world. Please tell them about us. We are now active on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn. We've got a YouTube channel. And we're in 3 countries at this point in time. We're in Ireland and in the UK and in Australia. And we will be rolling out in more countries in due course. We're running quite a few campaigns with stakeholders and partners all over the world now, and these will be building. So if any of this interests you, please reach out to us. We have a nice campaign running in Ireland for the delivery of biltong through Uncle Bok, biltong, dried horse and boerewors, and you get a little card in your packet, and if you take part and you order again, then you can actually win one of these fantastic cookbooks by Ilse van der Merwe. So that's running till the end of the year. We also partnered with Cake Sisters. They in Northern Ireland and make Cook Sisters and peppermint crisp and malva and all those lovely things and deliver throughout Ireland. So they're little cards like that. Some of you may have seen if you've ordered from Cake Sisters, Serena and her team. And then Michelle in the UK, Edbo Eats. We also are running a campaign there. Lots of great goodies being baked there. So lots of things happening all over the world. I want to say thank you very much for listening to our first webinar in Australia. The next one will premiere on the 25th of November. We will have varied speakers, varied topics. Remember, you can vote for a topic. If there's something that you'd really like, go onto our website. You can see the draft topics for next month are there. And any particular one you'd like, please just vote on that. And that's the one we'll present on. So I'll play out with my money movie so you can get a sense of what that is. And then otherwise, I will see you on the 25th. And all the best. Thank you for coming. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
Hello, friends. Today we're learning about something super cool, saving money. This is Jack. He's 2.5, and he's saving for a big camping trip with his parents. Ruby is 8, and she's saving for a shiny new bicycle. Vroom. Anne is 6. She's saving to buy her very first watch, TikTok. And James, who's 8, is saving for guitar lessons. Rock on. Saving means keeping your money so you can buy something special later. It helps you reach your goals. Even grown-ups save. Jack's parents are saving for the same trip. Saving is for everyone. Saving teaches patience and feels amazing when you reach your goal. I save a little every day to buy the things I really want. Hooray! What will you save for? Talk to your family and start saving today.